they think they're better than the founders of Google. And that's just not a weird thing in a certain subset of America.
I think the issue in the UK is often we pull down people for being successful.
In San Francisco, you would never hear that because everyone thinks they're better than everybody else. And this is kind of delusional. It is literally delusional. Do you know how Twitter/X as a product emerged?
No.
You remember the story? This has been a while ago now. So it's 20 years, literally 20 years now. This is how it happened. So I think it was a company called Audio, a podcasting company. This was like the very, very, very first semi-podcasting boom before the big one that happened recently. And anyway, the CEO was just like, okay, we got a year of runway, something like that. I think it was 8 months, whatever. And he's like, but this podcasting thing is we're not going to be able to, like the bandwidth, all these other things in 2000, we're not working out. And so, he did all hands. He's like, look, we got 8 months, to his employees, all of, there's a lot of employees, it's not a lot, but there's a reasonable amount. It was a medium-sized business. He's like, look, we got 8 months. We're not going to do the podcasting. We got to pivot to something else. Do you guys have any ideas? This one guy was like, well, I have this side project where it's like, if you, text to this website, it posts to the website. So that was Twitter, right? And then they decided to test it out at South by Southwest of 2026, spring, so March. And people were just like, whoa, this is awesome. And it just became a big hit. It was the big breakout of that year's South by Southwest Tech. And so they pivoted their whole company away from its origins as a podcasting app, as audio, rebranded to Twitter, and they created this company. This is how a lot of tech companies in America happen. They're pivoting, they fail, they figure something else out. They don't give up because they're optimistic and they're hopeful. And, the threat of failure is a challenge, right? And I know actually a fair amount of, I live in Austin, Texas, and I go to SF. I met a lot of Europeans. I would say mostly, but not exclusively, mostly French and British that are entrepreneurs that live in the United States. Like they love the countries they're from. A lot of them have family there. They don't want to leave. And I will tell you, the French, they really miss the food. They really miss the culture. The British are like a little less, I'm going to be honest. They're not talking about that as much. Mostly it's like family and just like, familiar, whatever. But they wanted to live there. They wanted to have companies there. They wanted to make their lives there, but it wasn't economically feasible for them. Okay. So in France, you can't fire anybody. There's issues like that. So I remember talking to a French entrepreneur, and he started like hiring people in America because he was like, I cannot do this in France right now. So I'm going to have like a small team in France, and I have like American team. And eventually he was like, wait, like most of my company's in America. I need to go to America. So, he's in Austin, Texas now, and, he's going to create his life here, I guess. And so, there are entrepreneurial people in Europe. It's just the system, the culture, the law, the economics. It's not there. It's not there, And like, your country, obviously, your home country, Britain, steam engine, industrial revolution. It's not like that's totally out of character. It's just, it's not there anymore. And I don't know why, like, that it's up to you to figure out why, what happened in your culture. But like everyone who's talked to British teams has said, yeah, like they're just like very competent and very good at the technical things, but there is a lack of spark just in the aggregate. Now, if you take a British person out of Britain and you put them on an American team, it's probably fine.
So this is
there's
actually,
no synergy.
And this is an amazing point. So what I always say with British creators and entrepreneurs, because of them, if they can shift the mindset in the UK and then go to the US, they are so unstoppable because everything and everyone is telling you, it's trying to put you down when you're in London. Oh, why are you doing that, mate? Come on, like just do what we're doing, come to the pub, whatever. It's like that sort of attitude, that sort of mindset. But then when you think about the US, we're talking about compounding effect of immigration for hundreds and hundreds of years. The dopamine, the compounding effect of dopamine and that optimism, and you start realizing why it's so different. It's like there is clear. I would love to see that like, studies on brains, and maybe we can go into this with genetics.
Okay, so this is like, it's kind of like there is no tangent in podcasting, so I'm not going to say it's a tangent. But like in the United States, like it was originally founded as an Anglo country. At the founding of the white population, about 80% of it, so the first census 1780, I believe 80% of it was from the British Isles, right? Which includes Ireland at the time. Mostly English, but not exclusive. There's Scottish, Welsh, whatever. And then the other 20% was other like, Dutch. There's actually a fair amount of Germans that came over in the 18th century because the Kingdom of Hanover, or, Hanover was part of England at that time. And so we had a lot of Protestant Germans. Dwight Eisenhower's ancestry is Pennsylvania Dutch. They're Germans from that period. Okay, we're predominantly, but it's not all Anglos. So for example, in New England, mostly people from East Anglia and a few of the coastal towns in the South, in the South, in the American South, a lot of people were from like Devonshire. They're from the Southwest. Oh. Yeah, they're from like local areas in England. So I have a friend of mine was once saying like when you go to England, you see a lot of people like kind of look American. Then you see like some faces, you're just like those people just never came. We don't know who they are, but like you never see a face like that in the U.S. So there are parts I don't, like I know that like there are people from the Midlands, for example, that came to Pennsylvania. So it's a subset of people that came from England. It's not a representation of all of England's various diversity. And then you obviously you have the selective migration, which is a real issue. With other types of migrants, like we have some better data. So with Italians, for example, we know that about half of the Italians that came to the United States through Ellis Island and elsewhere went back. So what's the difference between the people that went back and the people that stayed? There has to be a difference. It cannot be random, it's just like, who misses their, cousins, that kind of like bigger extended family group. So I think that there are personality differences, probably on the individual level, but also I think the individual level like is to be explored. I don't dismiss it, but it's quite clear there's personality difference on the national level. And I will say, when you talk about British people and English British people, I've heard of these sorts of things. It's kind of like negativity, this collective negativity that is found in the United States, just not in all cultures. So the United States, obviously don't find it in the SF tech scene. You don't find it like in Austin, for example. But I've had friends, black friends, who complain like in the black community. Like you got to leave the black community to really flourish because people are trying to take you down because they're jealous, and they'll just be like, why you think, like I'm going to use like a little ebonics, like, why you think you better than us? Like, which is like, okay, in San Francisco, you would never hear that because everyone thinks they're better than everybody else. Do you see what I'm saying? Like everyone thinks like this is kind of delusional. It is literally delusional. When I lived in the Bay, about a decade ago, it was quite clear there was a subset of people that think that they are going to be the next Larry Page or Sergey Brin because they're smarter than Larry Page and Sergey Brin. They know that, they think that, and they just think Larry Page and Sergey Brin got lucky, and so they're going to make it. Now, the reality is there's only like, on the order of 1,000 billionaires, I think, in the world, something like that, or in the United States maybe. Yeah. But so they're not going to, but there's so many people that think that. There's so many people that believe that they are just as good. And you know what? Like, you're not like, who do you think you are? Well, you know who they think they are. They think they're better than the founders of Google. And that's just not a weird thing in a certain subset of America. And the people that I like run, I know people like this. I had a friend, I'm not gonna say who it is, but he's actually pretty famous. But basically when he was at Stanford, he was like, he wanted to be, he's at Stanford. He wanted to be the next, he had failed. He's only worth like, 300 or 400 million. So.
But you're right. Like I drove from San Francisco all the way to Vegas through Yosemite, Fresno, Bakersfield, stopping off some mountain towns to rest and enjoy my birthday. And again, I stop off in a hotel with the dust balls going by, and I'm thinking, the next Larry Page isn't staying here or in Iowa or whatever. No offense to those places, right? And so again, yes, sometimes we get stuck in those bubbles, those echo chambers, and you start thinking, oh, this is such a representation of...
Well, you follow me on Twitter. We were talking about this. I did tweet this out. This partly was reading my friend Garrett Jones, economist at George Mason, his book about immigration, the culture transplant. And it was talking about like areas where there are innovation. The United States is a very innovative country, but you know what? 99.99% of this country is not innovative. It's San Francisco, it's Boston, it's New York, it's Austin, LA, Seattle. It's like the big urban areas with agglomerations of talent. Like we have a bunch of little Londons, maybe put it that way. New York is maybe half a London, whatever. But we have a bunch of these innovation hubs. Most of the country is not an innovation hub. It's much more like what you might recognize from England, like rural England or something like that. You go to like the rural South and. Well, I have a friend. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who was working remote, as you can do today. He had a good career. He decided to live in rural Pennsylvania in the Northeast. And, after like 3 years, he was like, okay, I can't live here because like like it was like football on Sunday, drinking beers, shooting some, football on Sunday, and rinse and repeat. He could not live that life, right? But that is the life in a lot of this country. It's very monotonous for a lot of people, depending on the type of person you are. It's good for some people. Some people like that routine and that like stability, right? But this is a country where if that's not for you, you could go. Just go to New York, go to Austin, go to San Francisco, and create your future. And there are some things that Britain's like gotten lucky. So DeepMind, Google DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, I think. Yeah.
And Mustafa Suleyman.
He wants to stay in London. And like I was just mentioning to a friend, I can't tell you how many times when I go to the Bay, people say that, oh, well, it has to be in England because Demis is there. That single choice of him staying in London, arguably, keeps Britain in the game when it comes to artificial intelligence. This one individual choice. So, I haven't been since 2010. I was telling you, but I have like relatives there. I have a lot of friends there. My company has employees there.
You just touched on a really good point here. Demis was born, I believe, in the UK to parents of, I don't know where they were from.
I think he's Arab.
Mustafa's dad was a Syrian taxi driver. I'm not sure about Demis exactly where. We'll put in the show notes, but he decided that decision has such a huge reverberation on British society.
Yeah.
And what I find really frustrating about a lot of Brits right now is they are fleeing to wherever. And I get it. There's certain policies, especially if you're ultra wealthy. I get that argument.
Yeah.
But I feel there's a duty to your nation, to your country, to stand up. And that one decision by an extraordinary individual has such a huge, I think the issue in the UK is often we pull down people for being successful.
Yes.
How many people are saying, Demis Hassabis, this great son of immigrants, who is making such a big difference on this society because of X, Y, and Z. They're probably just saying, oh, fucking hell, mate, he's just fucking wealthy and fuck him.
Yeah. So I will tell you, we were talking about, Britain has a lot of good human capital, kids that are graduating from Oxford, Cambridge, whatever, they can like stand up to, whatever, the Ivy plus people. But, one thing that I've heard from people, multiple people, is like, say like you have a British engineering team, a British dev team. They're good, they're competent, but within them, they have kind of like British negativity, pessimism a little bit.
Thanks for watching this Beyond Tomorrow clip. If you haven't subscribed yet to our main channel, join us there for conversations that can help you thrive today and flourish tomorrow. We'll see you next time.